Hello third graders, I'm Mr. Hazy, and today we're going to be creating a scaled bar graph. The purpose of this lesson is to help us understand how to draw a scaled bar graph to represent a data set with several categories. In today's lesson, we will be covering Iowa Core Math Standard 3MDB3, which is to represent and interpret data. And our learning goal today is at the end of the video, we want you to be able to draw a scaled bar graph to represent a data set with several categories. Let's begin by viewing a correct example of a bar graph that represents this data set. In creating a bar graph, it is always important to remember to title your chart and to label both the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis is used to represent the independent variable of a data set, which is usually the categories or names. The y-axis is used to represent the dependent variable, or typically the numbers of a data set. When labeling the y-axis, it's always important to remember to put equal space between each set of numbers. It is also important to consistently go up by the same amount of numbers. In this graph, it goes up by ones, except they only labeled every other two. If we labeled every one, then it would look like this. When drawing the bars, it is important to have each bar have the same width. The height of the bar depends on the data in the set. Since under comedy, the number of people is 4, we draw the height at 4. For action, it's 5, so we draw the height at 5, and so forth. Some graphs can be misleading or deceiving. Graph 1 makes it seem like the number of people whose favorite food is hot dog is a lot more than those who like hamburgers. Graph 2 represents the same data, except now you can see how close it really is from values of hot dogs to hamburgers. Both graphs are technically correct, but it is always important to remember the difference. You do not technically need to start at 0, but if graph 1 would have started at 955, the hamburger value would have disappeared, and you would have not known how much the hamburger value actually is. The same goes for the maximum height of the graph. If it would have ended at 985, we would have not known all of the value of hot dogs. Now I think it's time for you guys to try it. Which of these graphs, A, B, C, or D, represents this data set? Let's start by looking at all of our options. When I look at option A, I notice that the bar for red is a lot wider than the rest of them, which makes it seem like red has a higher value when it really doesn't. Since we learned before that each bar has to be the same width, I think we can rule this one out. On option B, I noticed that it goes up by 1 each time, all the bars are the same, and all of the data is accounted for. So far, option B looks pretty good to me, but let's look at the others just in case. For option C, I noticed that there is not a value for pink. That is because it starts at 1 and it hides the value of pink. Since this doesn't account for all of the data, we can rule this out too. When I look at option D, I notice that it goes up by 1 every time. All the bars are the same width, and it has the correct data value for each number. Except the maximum number is the same as the value of red and yellow, and I don't know whether the value of red and yellow goes beyond the maximum value, so therefore it is wrong. Now I can conclude that option B is correct. Congratulations! Now you're ready to draw and interpret graphs on your own.